It's Voyager Pro Brewing Series, where we teach you all the tips and tricks for each brewing style of coffee and tea and many other beverages. Today we're talking about French press coffee. You've probably seen this referred to as hand press coffee, and it's one of the favorites of many campers who don't use an on-fire percolator. Being Voyager beverages and all about travel and exciting trips, we love a good French press. Now, I'll usually take my glass French press with me when I'm out hiking or going on adventures, but it makes a wonderful addition to any home kitchen, and you might see these at many popular cafes. The way that a French press works is filtering coffee out and steeping hot water with coffee to create a bolder beverage. You'll often hear people say that French press coffee is stronger, and technically it's not. It really just has to do with the way that the French press works. And most French presses have some kind of plunging mechanism that's going to push the coffee grinds out of the slurry of coffee and water. And that's the technical term we actually use for it, slurry. In all French presses is going to be some kind of filter that is pushed down with a frame to extract the coffee grinds out of the coffee. Most have a wire mesh, like this one here. What this wire mesh does is it leaves all of those oils and particles of the coffee itself in the final liquid, instead of like a paper filter that traps those and pulls them out. One compound especially that's left in French press coffee is caffeino, and this contributes to that bolder, rounder flavor that you experience when you have a French press cup of coffee. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the plunger. So we have this open pitcher, completely dry and free of anything. Now, some people like to pre-rinse these and warm them up. I've done that already, just to get this process started for you. The next thing we're going to do is take some coarsely ground coffee. That's the secret to a French press coffee that is smooth, bold, and delicious without being astringent or bitter. If you use normal coffee grounds for a French press, you tend to have a little bit more bitterness, and that's just due from over extraction of the coffee as it's brewing, because we're doing an immersion brewing process here when we make a French press. I've pre-ground this, but you'll see that I've ground it on a coarse setting to make sure that I've got a really coarse coffee grind that's going to help it express over time. So the first thing I'm going to do for today's brew, now how much coffee and how much water depends on your flavor preference and your taste. Adding more coffee and less water means you're going to have more time for them to extract fully, and you're going to end up with a really sour and really acidic coffee. I'm going to add 50 grams of coffee. Now you'll notice that's probably about as much as you would put in your half gallon or 12 cup coffee pot. It's quite a bit of grounds, and we're looking at a smaller vessel here. This is a 33 ounce or 1 quart-ish pitcher. So we're going to end up with a higher total dissolved solids. Again, this is going to lead to a little bit of a bolder flavor, but not necessarily stronger coffee, because we're going to extract it at a different rate of time. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this. Now, there's many different ways to add water to your French press. The more you disturb the coffee ground bed, the more CO2 you'll see it release, and the more it's going to extract quickly. However, you can just pour it in. Some people will pour it halfway, swirl it, and then fill it up the rest of the way. I like to do that because I know that I'm getting a little bit of pre-interaction, essentially a wetting of the grounds and an opening up of the coffee before it totally extracts. However, because this is an immersion brewing method, the coffee is going to be in contact with the water in solution. So you have a little bit of leniency, and really this is where you get to be the master of the coffee. So I'm just kind of wetting the coffee grounds, making sure that I've got full saturation over here. And I will de-steam that window a little bit just so you can see it. And now that I've poured I'm doing this on a scale, about 400 grams of water into it, or 12 ounces. I'm going to pull this up and just give it a little swirl. Now what you can see in the top, and we'll show you here in a second, is foaming up as that CO2 releases from this thick bed of slurry of coffee grounds and water. And that's going to help this coffee open up and brew just a little bit more boldly. I'm going to fill this up to about 20 ounces of water. And I'm going to pop my top back on. I'm going to let this brew for about 3 minutes. Now, I could fill it up with more water, let it go longer, and at some point we'll reach a point of diminishing return and it won't be any stronger, any bolder, etc. However, for 3 minutes, this is going to give me a nice, pleasantly bold cup of coffee. And because the cafectal is left in the coffee, we know that it's going to have that nice round smoothness to it. I'm going to zero out my weight and just come back in 2.5 minutes and we'll have a smooth cup of French press coffee. Once you've hit your allotted time, and again, this can be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, can be as much as 75 grams of coffee or more, and as little as 10 grams of coffee, depending on the amount of water you're going to add to it. We just depress the plunger, and you will see that the coffee grounds are now being held at the bottom, and we simply pour. Now, you might see that the coffee does not look as clear as it might when you pour it out of your coffee pot. And that's on purpose. There's no paper filter, and all of the richness that's contained in these coffee grounds are now in our cups and ready to enjoy. French press is a wonderful method to enjoy if you're at a cafe sitting with friends for a few hours. It comes in a nice insulated French press. You can sit there to press it and pour little cups of coffee as the day goes on. It's also a wonderful option if you're getting ready in the morning and you don't have time to push all of the buttons. Just grind, add water, and go. So the next time you see French press somewhere, be sure to try one out. And if you're working in a cafe, now you know, just turn that dial and your French presses will turn out so much smoother and more refreshing. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in our comments and let us know, or you can get in contact with us at Voyager Coffee and Tea and Voyager Beverages. In the meantime, happy sipping.